We're Kristen, Jameson, and Maddie. This year we're living off-grid in our motorhome full-time, adventuring up the U.S. from the Mexican to Canadian border. Hi, today we want to talk about RV parks versus boondocking. We spent our first 2 years of living in an RV at RV parks exclusively. We would stay on a monthly stay for about a month or two and then move on. And while we were there, we just were always still going away on the weekend in the camper van, which is off-grid and kind of boondocking, but a little bit easier to move around than our big bus. All the while we were saving up for solar and kind of knowing that we at least wanted the capability to boondock with the bus from time to time.
So we started by just doing a few overnights in the motorhome, and that was the extent of our boondocking in the motorhome. So New Year's of this year was our first real extended period that we were able to take the motorhome out. We felt more confident having friends around in case stuff broke, but that's now changed. So with that week in Quartzsite, we were just able to make sure all of our systems would work, not plugged in, because we had been connected to shore power pretty much all the time.
Yeah. After those test trips, we just went all in. We scheduled our solar install, and we even started full-time boondocking about a week before we got our solar. We've been off-grid free camping ever since. It's been about 2 months now.
Yeah, I mean, boondocking's been pretty easy with the solar system. We don't have to run the generator at all. It's pretty thoughtless, honestly. We don't have to think about it. So now we're able to live where we used to vacation on the weekends in the camper van. Now living there in the motorhome, we found that the van really wasn't necessary. So we decided to sell the camper van, and with that, it was just easier to go to an RV park, so we logistically could leave stuff and leave Maddie while we had to run to sell it and buy a new vehicle.
Yeah, and now we're back off-grid and reflecting on our RV park time and our boondocking time. We thought we'd put together some pros and cons and share them with you.
So here's our pros and cons list for RV parks. Let's start with the pros of RV parks. On-site laundry, and also you can use your own washer and dryer because you have connections.
It's a big one for me. I really like to be able to have clean clothes all the time. Number 2 is unlimited water and having connections hooked up 24/7, so you can dump your gray or your black and flush your tanks while you do so.
Yep. Number 3, amenities. The library, game room, fitness centers that RV parks have. Sometimes even just a business center to be able to print. Like, we have to print documents every now and then, and we don't want to get a printer, so we run to Staples or need to go somewhere to get it printed. So
yeah. Number 4 is a 50 amp connection. Right now we're a little bit limited with our inverter and our solar setup, that we really can't use high amperage appliances like my blow dryer or our toaster oven. Like, we can use the toaster oven, but we can't bake for extended amounts of time on it. So it was kind of nice to have 50 amp hookups and be able to just, even we ran AC one day, I think.
It was like
hot
80 degrees.
when we were,
yeah. So need to know if the air conditioning unit still works. So use them. And number 5 will be just general package delivery and Amazon delivery. When you're boondocking, that's logistically something you have to think of. Like right now where we are at Saddle Mountain, there's an RV park just down the street, and we found out filling up with water last night that they will accept Amazon packages free of charge. You just need to let them know that they're coming. But things like that is having it sent to family or friends' houses, and when you're going to be by to pick it up, and then they start to get a mound of packages at their doorstep waiting for you to arrive. So
I think those are our top 5 pros for RV parks after living in them full time for a couple of years and then sort of disconnecting and having to go back, we sort of still felt the same way. So on to the cons of RV parks.
Yep. The first con would be tight spaces and low privacy. At the last park that we were at a pull-through because we were there to possibly set up our toad, so we thought a pull-through would be easier. We usually would do a back-end. I don't mind backing into spaces. I think it's quite easy. But at this spot, they were really skinny pull-throughs. And with our slide extended, both slides extended. It was the patio on the neighbor's side, and it was the patio on our side. So that's how wide those spaces were. Dumping your tanks and stuff, you're saying hello to your neighbor, quite literally.
Totally. Number 2 is being close to nature, or like close to a national park, or close to something cool to do outdoors, but not in it. We really want to be in the woods or in nature, and it really feels like it's pretty rare to find an RV park that even feels like it's in nature. You know, there's a lot of pavement and concrete and buildings and stuff, and we just much prefer to be out here in the wide open.
Yep. Number 3 would be noise, especially at night. And it's not even the fact that like the park itself will be noisy, it's road noise around. When you're boondocking, it's pretty quiet most places we choose to go. We're pretty far into the backcountry or off the main road. So at night, it's completely silent. Yeah. Just
like the ambient light too. We're kind of, I don't think we're light sleepers, but we like it to be dark for sleeping. And that one week at the RV park last week, we both didn't sleep very well. There's road noise and ambient lights and street lights and just lights in the park. And yeah, so number 4 is probably the most obvious and maybe the biggest con for us is the cost. Yeah. When we lived in RV parks, we chose to do monthly stays, and we could get the costs down to $10 to $15 a night, which really isn't that bad. $350 to $450 a month is still a lot cheaper than renting an apartment or a mortgage on a house. But for us, once we had solar, solar was a mortgage payment of itself. So we wanted to go straight boondocking to save some money.
Yep. Let's move on to boondocking pros and cons. So starting with the pros of boondocking, the first one, transitioning from the last in RV parks was the cost. Free. Boondocking most of the time will be absolutely free. Some places you may need to purchase a permit to boondock, but the permits usually will be $15. And that's just a formality that you have to purchase to be able to stay there.
Number 2 is wide open spaces, being close to nature and quiet. Again, this is the opposite of the cons of RV parks, but we just love being in nature, having access for our morning walk to feel more like a hike than, being on the sidewalk going around the neighborhood.
Yep. Number 3 would be it feels like camping. That's why we want to be out in the RV, is we want to be out in the places where we are, not feel like we're in the city. So boondocking definitely allows you to do that and make you feel like that. Dark skies and the sunrises and sunsets that you get with the horizons that seem endless as opposed to when you're in the city.
Totally. Number 4 is community. We talked a little bit about this one. When we lived at RV parks, we had friends that were living in our RVs and trying to coordinate who was going where. But frankly, RV park reservations are so hard to come by to begin with that coordinating with other people to be at the same place as you with a reservation seemed hard. And with our boondocking group of RV full-time friends, we can just be like, oh, we're out here if you happen to be coming by, like no reservations required. It's just a lot easier to have a community and to see them more regularly.
Yeah, and we're going to have friends come meet us out here, and they're just going to be able to park wherever they want to right next to us, and we don't have to worry about reserving a spot close enough to us or by us so we can hang out.
Yeah, get to build your own little neighborhoods.
Yep. Going on to number 5, that would be flexibility. Again, we don't have a check-in, check-out time frame or even dates. And that can have a con too, but that's the flexibility that we wanted, is we can just kind of do what we want and not have an actual set agenda. Last summer we had to have everything planned, from staying from here to there, making sure that overnights were covered if we needed to, but now it will make it work. And if we need to stay at a park somewhere because we can't find boondocking, we'll stay at a park, but we don't have to.
Yeah, so the con of that flexibility with boondocking is that the space is also not guaranteed, right? So the access is constantly unknown, it's constantly changing. You know, we've been here before, but we still didn't know what would be here when we showed up. We didn't know if a road had washed out or there was some big party happening and there would be no spots. So there's always this element of unknown, and we like to overcome that by just having a backup plan. Like, we want to go to here, and if that's not possible, we'll go here instead.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to stay up to date with whatever the latest Campendium or the dirt reviews or even the local BLM or Forest Service offices websites say. But you get out to the location and a lot of times the information's not accurate or up to date.
Yeah.
So going into con number 2 would be seeking out water and sometimes paying for water. Paying for water doesn't always seem that bad, but sometimes it can get expensive and you are kind of like, what?
Yeah,
but
when you have a 100-gallon tank.
Yeah, but finding water can sometimes be a challenge, and you can often find water, but finding drinking water to fill your tank sometimes is a challenge depending on where you are.
Con number 3 is laundry. So when boondocking, we don't usually use our onboard washer dryer. If we do, it's only when we have extra water, and
we have to run the generator too. It's not wired into our inverter.
Yeah. So, you know, we have to go and seek out a coin-op laundry. Sometimes they're not the nicest. There's just this unknown element about it, like, are my clothes going to get ruined? And we find that they're usually a little bit more expensive, like a standalone laundromat, than the RV parks. So being at an RV park, you have on-site laundry facilities usually, which you most often pay for, but they're generally a little bit cheaper. I think they're just kind of breaking even, and it's a service to the guests, whereas you go to a standalone laundromat, it's a little bit more expensive.
Yep. Con number 4 would be mail is complicated. We covered how easy it is as a pro in RV parks, but boondocking, it's something you have to think about. Where we are here, we are close to Phoenix, so we can technically have stuff shipped to friends in Phoenix, or like we found out last night, the RV park just down the street that accepts mail for boondockers.
Yeah, I think that's a trick we'll probably use more often now that we know it's a thing.
Definitely, but when we were out at KOFA a few weeks ago, there was nothing close.
Yeah.
Yuma was over an hour away, and Quartzsite was what, 30, 40 minutes away?
Yeah.
But even that, there was no places to receive packages there besides general delivery at the post office.
Which is just slightly unpredictable right now. The Postal Service has been a lot slower than UPS and FedEx lately.
Yep.
Well, that kind of wraps it up for us today, I think. That's our pros and cons of RV parks versus boondocking, and kind of where we're at right now is we love boondocking, and we're going to keep doing it.